that's an hors d'oeuvre, which, if you think about it, is outside the work, just for basic French, because an hors d'oeuvre is something that comes before the entree, when in a medieval banquet, all the servants would come in grand processional entree with all the actual main courses, which we didn't get tonight, and I was rather disappointed.
You didn't get a main? That's after the speech.
It's wonderful to know that, etymologically speaking, we are all mates here, insofar as mates are people who share your meat at table. And we're also all just about companions, because we all have the bread and the Welsh rarebit, which means that we shared bread. So in Latin we are companus, as in French pound for bread. And that's what a companion is. It's just somebody who shares your food. But there's all sorts of extra little stories in the meal we had tonight. For example, carpaccio. Carpaccio was invented by a guy called Cipriani, who was the original owner of the famous Harry's Bar in Venice. And he invented carpaccio because a countess said that she'd been told she'd only eat raw meat. And so he made this dish of incredibly thinly cut pieces of beef. And he didn't know what to call it, but he was a Venetian, and at the time there was an exhibition in Venice of this Venetian painter called Vittore Carpaccio, who was a Renaissance painter. And he's a pretty bad painter, really. He's not great. The one thing he's famous for is his pinks. His pinks and his reds. He had some amazing trick in his palette, and no one quite knows what it was. But he had these beautiful pinks and reds, and the guy made this beautiful dish, which was kind of pinky, reddy, purpley, if you use beetroot. And so he decided to name that dish after the painter. And so that was a carpaccio. And he did exactly the same thing when the same guy invented the Bellini cocktail, and there was an exhibition of Bellinis on at the same time at Doge's Palace. So he called it the Bellini. And the same guy who did carpaccios and Bellinis, which is a wonderful little connection. But then you go from the grandeur of Renaissance Venice and all the glamour to Wales. Welsh rabbit, several people asked me about this, was originally Welsh rabbit. It's just a weird variant spelling, but it was definitely originally Welsh rabbit. And that's because of the idea that the Welsh are incredibly mean. Quite seriously, a Welsh comb is your 5 fingers. A Welsh carpet is when you can't afford a carpet but you paint one on the floor anyway. And Welsh rabbit is the idea that if a Welshman invites you around to his house to eat some rabbit, then you're probably just going to get bread and cheese. Although it's also based on the idea that the Welsh are apparently incredibly fond of cheese. In fact, there's a definition of Welsh rabbit from an 18th century dictionary of slang kept in Gross's Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue, which gives this definition. The Welsh are said to be so remarkably fond of cheese that in cases of difficulty their midwives apply a piece of toasted cheese to the janua vita. I probably don't need to explain what that is. The gates of life. A piece of toasted cheese to the janua vita to attract and entice the young taffy, who, on smelling it, makes most vigorous efforts to come forth. And I actually got an email from somebody, because I happened to mention that one in the book on carpaccio, and I got an email from somebody recently who said he was a Scouser, but apparently back in his day, he was 89, back in his day, which must have been quite a while ago, if there was difficulty in childbirth, people would still say, put a bit of cheese in the bed. So it seems to have got beyond Wales. And we had that with some parsley, which comes from the Greek petroselinon, which means stone parsley, really, because that's petros, the Greek root from which we get Peter, who was a stone, Saint Peter, the stone on which Jesus built his church, and also the idea of being petrified, which is when you're turned to stone. It all goes back to that same Latin radical. The root, because Latin for root is radical or radix, which is also the origin of the word radish, which is just a root pulled out of the ground. And that's also where you get words like a political radical, who's really a political radish man, because he wants to change everything from the start. And also where you get the idea of eradicate, which is when you try and root something out, literally speaking. So if you try and eradicate the current Greek radicals using radishes, it would all be one and the same thing. Well, we had polenta with that, which was also delicious.
You were meant to have polenta.
Oh, sorry, yes.
But, there was dissension in the ranks, so yeah.
Well, I mean, that destroys the little bit about the connection to Poland, so I can't do that anymore.
Tell it anyway.
I can tell you that lentils, that's the French word for content lenses for some reason.
They're sort of concave.
Yeah, they're shaped like lentils. And the salsa, which is simply salsa in terms of the sauce, or indeed the saucy dance, is just salted. And it's the same thing as, say, a herba salata, which is salted herbs, which is where we get the word salad from. So it all connects all the way through. And salami, which is salted sausages, is always that same sal, just meaning salt. And ended up with a beautiful apple tart and a few little currants. Currants are all originally imported from Corinth, and Corinth slowly got changed to currant, as in a currant bun. And so currants are really Corinthians, and Corinthian used to be a term meaning luxurious or divine and pleasure-seeking, which I think we've all got beautifully out of this meal. I hope everybody has left. I actually discovered just this morning the word a tailor's mince, which is an incredibly useful term. It's for when you, when you're eating a meal and you want to show that you appreciate it, so you want to eat as much as you can, but you also don't want it to look like you were left hungry, so you just leave a tiny little bit on the edge of the plate to show that you really enjoyed it, but it was enough. And that's that tiny bit you leave on the edge of the plate. It's called a tailor's mince, because when a tailor came round in Victorian England to make your suit for you, and you fed him at your house, he would always leave it out of politeness. That, I think, is a full etymological explanation of the meal.
Sausage.
The sausages. Sorry, yes, I somehow managed to miss the sausages. Very good point. The Latin for sausage is botulinum, or botulus. Hence the very useful word botuliform, which means sausage-shaped. And I'm sure you can think of some context into which she used that in the next 24 hours or so. And sausages are in this case very delicious things, but they're often rather dodgy things, because sausages are where you put the leftover meat, the scrapings from the abattoir floor, all too often. For example, the term hot dog, which we all know, comes from the 19th century American belief that the sausages sold by street vendors were all probably just made from dogs. And we still use that term, hot dog. I think I wrote in the book it was curiosity killed the cat, but it was a sausage maker who disposed of the body. Indeed, sausages can kill you. They can kill you very quickly and very nastily through the process of paralysis if they contain Clostridium botulinum, which is botulinum toxin, which paralyzes you, kills you pretty quick. However, if you get only a tiny little bit of botulinum toxin, tiny little bit, then you can induce temporary paralysis in any part of the body you want, which is useful if somebody's, say, suffering from muscle spasms, because you can just inject them with botulinum toxin and the spasms go away. You should not try this at home, because 1 microgram of botulinum toxin causes instant death, so really don't go away and try this. But in those tiny, tiny doses, it cures muscle spasms, and people realised about 30 years ago now that if you, therefore, if you inject that into the face of somebody who's maybe their face is just drooping that little bit, then it will paralyse it, and you will start to look a little bit younger. Very, very odd, but a little bit younger, because your face is paralysed with sausage poison. And so this seemed like a cheap alternative to plastic surgery, and botulinum toxin became popular, became chic. People started having botulinum toxin parties, sausage poison parties. Except that they actually shortened that sausage poison doesn't sound too Hollywood, and nor does botulinum toxin. So they shortened it to Botox. And that's where our modern Botox comes from, the thing that makes you look younger. It is just sausage poison extracted, unfortunately. And now I have fully fully completed the etymological explanation of the meal. And it is therefore time to turn the tables, which is a very, very old expression from the days when at the end of a meal you simply turn the board of the table upside down, everything would fall off and get eaten by the dogs. And thank you again.
Do you want to dole out the chockies, please?